Benito Mussolini promised Italians pride and strength, but behind the speeches and parades came punishments and mass executions. From the streets of Rome to the villages of Ethiopia and the mountains of the Balkans, his rule left behind broken families and a country dragged into disaster. The scars of what he did to his victims still linger today. Before he became a dictator, Mussolini was just the son of a blacksmith. He was born on July 29, 1883, in Predappio, a small town in northern Italy. His full name was Benito Amilcare Andrea Mussolini. His father, Alessandro Mussolini, was also a proud supporter of socialist revolution, besides being a blacksmith. He named his son after Mexican reformer Benito Juarez. His mother, Rosa Maltoni, was a Catholic schoolteacher who believed in discipline and education. So from childhood, Mussolini lived between two worlds: political anger from his father and strict order from his mother. That mix shaped him early. As a boy, he had a temper. School records show that he stabbed a classmate with a penknife during a fight. In another incident, he hit a teacher. He was expelled more than once. People who knew him later said he always wanted to dominate others. He didn't like being challenged. He liked control. In 1902, at age 19, he left Italy for Switzerland to avoid military service and to look for work. He worked small jobs as a bricklayer and laborer. He slept in cheap lodgings and sometimes on the streets. Swiss police arrested him for vagrancy. He was jailed briefly, then expelled. During this time, he read socialist writers like Karl Marx and became active in radical political circles. He gave speeches to workers and built a reputation as a fiery speaker. He returned to Italy in 1904 after an amnesty allowed draft dodgers to come back. He finally completed military service. After that, he focused on journalism and socialist politics. By 1912, he rose quickly inside the Italian Socialist Party and became editor of the newspaper Avanti, which had a circulation of over 100,000 copies. Under his leadership, it became more radical and aggressive. He attacked capitalism, the monarchy, and the Catholic Church. Then 1914 changed everything. When World War I began, after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in June 1914, most Italian socialists wanted neutrality. Mussolini shocked his party by supporting Italy's entry into the war. He believed war would destroy the old system and create a new, stronger Italy. Because of this, he was expelled from the Socialist Party in November 1914. In 1915, Italy joined the war against Austria-Hungary. Mussolini enlisted in the army in September 1915. He served in the Bersaglieri infantry regiment on the Isonzo front. Life in the trenches was brutal. In February 1917, during a training exercise, a mortar exploded accidentally. Mussolini was seriously wounded by shrapnel and sent home. He would never return to the front. When the war ended in November 1918, Italy had lost around 650,000 soldiers. Over 1 million were wounded. The country was deep in debt. Prices had doubled. Factories closed. Soldiers returned home and found no jobs waiting for them. Many felt betrayed because Italy did not receive all the territory it had been promised by the Allies. During all of this, in March 1919 in Milan, Mussolini created a new movement called the Fasci Italiani di Combattimento. At first it was small. Fewer than 100 people attended the first meeting. Many were war veterans. They were angry, unemployed, and ready for action. These groups later became known as the Black Shirts because of the black uniforms they wore, inspired partly by elite wartime units called Arditi. From the start, violence was part of the strategy. Between 1919 and 1922, Italy experienced what historians call the Red Biennium, 2 years of intense strikes and worker uprisings. Socialist parties gained seats in elections. In some regions, red flags flew over factories. The Black Shirts responded with organized attacks. They stormed union offices. They beat socialist leaders with clubs. They forced opponents to drink castor oil, which caused severe illness and humiliation. They burned newspaper printing presses. In rural areas, they attacked peasant organizations. By 1921, hundreds of political opponents had been killed in clashes. Local police often did nothing. Some officers quietly supported the fascists because they feared communism more. Wealthy landowners and industrialists began funding Mussolini's squads because they saw them as protection against socialist revolution. In 1921, the movement became the National Fascist Party. That same year, Mussolini was elected to parliament. Now he had both street power and political legitimacy. The real turning point came in October 1922. Around 30,000 fascists gathered in different parts of Italy in what became known as the March on Rome. It was not a full military invasion. It was a show of force. Prime Minister Luigi Facta asked King Victor Emmanuel III to declare martial law. The king refused. He feared civil war and believed Mussolini could restore order. On October 29, 1922, the king invited Mussolini to Rome and asked him to form a government. Mussolini was just 39 years old. He arrived by train, not at the head of an army, but as a politician who had forced the system to bend. At first, his government included conservatives and liberals. It didn't look like a dictatorship yet, but Mussolini understood timing. He slowly tightened his grip. In 1924, elections were held under a new law that gave the largest party 2/3 of parliamentary seats. Fascists used intimidation during the campaign. After the election, socialist leader Giacomo Matteotti publicly accused fascists of fraud and violence. On June 10, 1924, he was kidnapped in Rome by fascist militants. His body was found in August in a shallow grave. The country was shocked. Many expected Mussolini to fall. Instead, he took responsibility for fascist violence in a speech in January 1925, and then moved to crush opposition completely. Opposition parties were banned. Independent newspapers were shut down. Critics were arrested. In 1927, the secret police known as Ovra was formally established. It built files on thousands of Italians. Informers were everywhere. Special courts tried political crimes. Many opponents were sent to internal exile on remote islands like Lipari and Ustica. Italy had become a dictatorship, step by step. But Mussolini was thinking bigger than Italy. In October 1935, he ordered the invasion of Ethiopia, one of the few African nations that had never been fully colonized. The emperor, Haile Selassie, ruled the country with limited modern weapons. Italy, by contrast, sent around 400,000 troops, along with tanks, aircraft, machine guns, and heavy artillery. The war began on October 3, 1935. Italian forces advanced from Eritrea in the north and from Italian Somaliland in the south. Ethiopian troops fought bravely, but were outmatched in equipment. Despite international agreements like the 1925 Geneva Protocol banning chemical weapons, Italian forces used mustard gas. Planes dropped gas bombs over battlefields, villages, and even water sources. Civilians were exposed, animals died, crops were poisoned. The gas caused terrible burns and slow deaths. Historians estimate that between 200,000 and 300,000 Ethiopians died during the invasion and occupation. Some estimates go even higher when including famine and disease caused by the war. In May 1936, Italian troops entered Addis Ababa. Mussolini declared the creation of Italian East Africa. King Victor Emmanuel III was proclaimed Emperor of Ethiopia. But resistance continued. In February 1937, during a public ceremony in Addis Ababa, 2 young Eritreans attempted to assassinate Italian Governor Rodolfo Graziani. He survived. The response was savage. For 3 days, known as the Yekatit 12, Italian forces and blackshirts killed an estimated 19,000 civilians in Addis Ababa. Homes were burned. Random people were shot in the streets. In May 1937, Italian forces targeted Debre Libanos Monastery, accusing monks of supporting resistance. Around 1,500 monks and pilgrims were executed. The League of Nations condemned Italy and imposed limited sanctions, but they were weak and poorly enforced. While building an empire abroad, Mussolini tightened control at home. After surviving assassination attempts in 1926, including one by a young Irishwoman named Violet Gibson, he pushed through exceptional laws. These laws outlawed all political parties except the fascists. Elected local governments were replaced by officials loyal to the regime. The Ovra secret police expanded its network. By the late 1930s, thousands were under surveillance. Special tribunals handled political crimes. Between 1926 and 1943, about 5,600 people were convicted by these courts. Many were sent to prison or internal exile on islands far from the mainland. Teachers had to swear loyalty to the regime in 1931. Almost all complied. Children were enrolled in youth groups, like the Opera Nazionale Balilla, where they wore uniforms and learned fascist ideology. The regime controlled newspapers, radio broadcasts, and film production through state agencies. Public criticism disappeared. In October 1936, Mussolini announced the Rome-Berlin Axis with Adolf Hitler. It was more than friendly diplomacy. It was a political and military alignment between two dictators who believed in expansion, nationalism, and crushing opposition. At first, Mussolini had not fully trusted Hitler. Earlier in the 1930s, he even opposed German influence in Austria. But after international sanctions over Ethiopia pushed Italy away from Britain and France, Mussolini leaned toward Germany. In 1938, he supported Hitler during the Munich Agreement, which allowed Germany to take part of Czechoslovakia. By May 1939, Italy and Germany signed the Pact of Steel. This agreement promised full military support if either country went to war. On paper, it looked strong. In reality, Italy was not prepared for a major war. Its economy was fragile. It depended on imported coal and oil. Its factories were not producing enough modern tanks or aircraft. Many Italian soldiers still used outdated rifles. Military leaders themselves warned that Italy would not be ready for a large conflict until at least 1942. But on September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war 2 days later. World War II had begun. Mussolini knew Italy was not ready. So he declared the country non-belligerent. This was a careful word choice. It meant Italy was not fighting yet, but it was not neutral either. For 9 months, Mussolini watched as German forces crushed Poland, then Denmark, and Norway. And then in May 1940 attacked France and the Low Countries. By June 1940, France was collapsing. Mussolini feared being left out of what he thought would be a quick German victory. On June 10, 1940, he declared war on Britain and France. He believed the conflict would end soon, and that Italy would gain territory in North Africa and the Mediterranean without heavy fighting. He miscalculated badly. In North Africa, Italian forces based in Libya attacked British-controlled Egypt in September 1940. The advance was slow and poorly organized. In December 1940, British forces launched Operation Compass. Within weeks, they destroyed much of the Italian 10th Army. Around 130,000 Italian soldiers were captured. It was a humiliating defeat. Germany had to send General Erwin Rommel and the Afrika Korps in early 1941 to stabilize the front. Then came another gamble. In October 1940, without informing Hitler in advance, Mussolini invaded Greece from Albania. He thought it would be an easy victory. Instead, Greek forces counterattacked and pushed the Italians back into Albania. Italian troops struggled with poor supplies, winter weather, and low morale. Back home, Italian cities were feeling the pressure. British bombers targeted industrial centers like Turin, Milan, and Genoa. Ports were attacked. Merchant ships were sunk in the Mediterranean. Food became scarce. Rationing tightened. Long lines formed outside shops. People whispered that Mussolini had dragged them into a war they could not win. In April 1941, Axis forces invaded Yugoslavia after a coup in Belgrade rejected alignment with Germany. Italy joined the attack alongside Germany and Hungary. Yugoslavia collapsed in less than 2 weeks. Italy occupied large parts of Slovenia, the Dalmatian coast of Croatia, and Montenegro. At first, Mussolini presented this as expansion and security, but the occupation quickly turned violent. Resistance movements formed almost immediately. Partisans, many of them communists led by Josip Broz Tito, began attacking Axis forces. Italian commanders responded with harsh counterinsurgency measures. They did not just target fighters, they targeted entire communities suspected of helping them. Italian forces carried out mass arrests. Men were rounded up in villages, families were separated. Entire villages were burned in retaliation for partisan attacks. Orders from Italian military leaders allowed for collective punishment, meaning civilians could be punished for actions they did not commit. Between 1942 and 1943, around 10,000 Slovene and Croatian civilians were interned at the concentration camp on the island of Rab in the Adriatic Sea. Many were women and children. The camp was overcrowded. Food was limited. Sanitation was poor. Disease spread quickly. Historians estimate that around 1,500 prisoners died at Rab from starvation, illness, and exposure. Rab was not the only camp. Italians also operated camps at Gonars and Monigo. In total, thousands of civilians from Slovenia and Croatia were deported during the occupation. In Slovenia alone, some say around 25,000 people were sent to camps or forced into relocation. Considering Slovenia's small population at the time, this was a large portion of the community. Italian commanders also authorized hostage shootings. If partisans attacked Italian soldiers, hostages could be executed in response. This policy was written into official orders. These were not random acts by rogue soldiers. By the summer of 1943, Italy was worn out. Bombing raids had damaged major cities. Food was scarce. Soldiers were dying in Russia, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. Ordinary Italians were tired of war and tired of Benito Mussolini. The promise of quick victories had turned into years of loss. On July 10, 1943, Allied forces from the United States and Britain landed in Sicily in a massive operation involving more than 150,000 troops on the first day alone. Within weeks, they were pushing north across the island. Italian defenses collapsed quickly. German forces fought harder, but even they could not stop the Allied advance. Sicily fell by mid-August. Inside Rome, panic spread among the fascist leaders. Many of them believed Mussolini had become a liability. On the night of July 24, 1943, the fascist Grand Council met for the first time in years. After hours of debate, they voted against Mussolini. The veto was led by Dino Grandi, a longtime fascist, who now believed Mussolini had to go. On July 25th, Mussolini went to meet King Victor Emmanuel III at the Royal Palace. He likely believed he still had control. Instead, the king informed him he was dismissed as prime minister. As Mussolini left the meeting, he was arrested by Italian police on the king's orders. Marshal Pietro Badoglio was appointed as the new head of government. Publicly, Badoglio announced that the war would continue alongside Germany. Privately, he and the king began secret negotiations with the Allies. Italy was trying to switch sides. On September 8, 1943, the Italian government announced an armistice with the Allies. The news shocked the country. Italian troops across Europe suddenly had no clear orders. Many were disarmed by German forces. Some were captured and sent to labor camps in Germany. Others joined the resistance. Germany reacted fast. Within days, German troops occupied northern and central Italy. They took control of major cities and military positions. Italy was now divided. The south was under Allied control. The north was under German occupation. Mussolini, meanwhile, was being moved from one secret location to another by the Italian authorities who feared a German rescue. He was eventually held at a hotel high in the mountains at Gran Sasso. On September 12, 1943, German commandos, led by Otto Skorzeny, carried out a daring rescue using gliders that landed near the hotel. The operation succeeded without a major firefight. Mussolini was flown to Germany to meet Hitler. Soon after, he was sent back to northern Italy and installed as the head of a new state called the Italian Social Republic. It was based in the town of Salo, near Lake Garda, so it is often called the Republic of Salo. In reality, it was a puppet regime under German control. Mussolini no longer had full power. German troops made the key decisions. Under German occupation, Mussolini's Italian Social Republic became deeply involved in Nazi politics, especially against Jews. Before 1943, Italy had passed racial laws, but large-scale deportations had not yet happened. That changed quickly after Germany took control of northern Italy. Between 1943 and 1945, around 8,000 Italian Jews were deported to Nazi death camps. Most were sent to Auschwitz in occupied Poland. Only about 1,000 survived the war. One of the first major roundups took place in Rome on October 16, 1943, when more than 1,000 Jews were arrested in a single day. They were transported in cattle cars, and very few came back. Italian fascist police played an active role in these arrests. They compiled lists, carried out raids, and guarded prisoners before handing them over to German authorities. Neighbors sometimes reported neighbors. In small towns, families were dragged from their homes with little warning. Property was seized, businesses were taken over. At the same time, Italy was sliding into civil war. After the armistice, many Italians joined partisan groups, fighting against German forces and the fascist Republic of Salo. These resistance fighters operated in mountains and rural areas. They sabotaged rail lines and attacked patrols. The response from German forces and fascist units was brutal. Reprisals were common. If partisans attacked German soldiers, nearby civilians could be executed. Entire villages were targeted. One of the worst massacres happened in Marzabotto in late September and early October 1944. German SS troops, with support from fascist collaborators, killed more than 700 civilians, including women, children, and elderly people. It was one of the largest massacres of civilians in Western Europe during the war. Similar violence happened in other places, like Sant'Anna di Stazzema, where hundreds of civilians were killed in August 1944. The pattern was clear. The war inside Italy was now personal. Italians were fighting Italians, and civilians were paying the price. By early 1945, Allied forces were pushing north through Italy. German defenses were collapsing. Mussolini's regime was falling apart. Many fascist leaders were trying to escape. In April 1945, Mussolini decided to flee. He hoped to reach Switzerland, possibly to negotiate or to avoid capture. But on April 27th, he was recognized and captured by Italian partisans near Lake Como. He was traveling in a German convoy, disguised in a German uniform. The next day, Mussolini and his longtime companion, Clara Petacci, were executed by partisans. Their bodies were transported to Milan. In Piazzale Loreto, the corpses were hung upside down from a metal structure. Crowds gathered. Some shouted. Some threw objects. The scene was chaotic and raw. It was a public display meant to show that fascist rule was truly over.